The aviation industry as a whole was quite proud of this aircraft. It took many years to make, and during the more than 30 years that it operated in the industry, there were no major problems. The Concorde, as it is now known, was the first and last supersonic passenger aircraft type in history. Supersonic refers to velocities greater than sound speed. It could travel across the Atlantic Ocean in 33 hours, but when its 30-year career came to an abrupt end on July 25, 2000, in a little 121 seconds, the whole world watched. Following the accident inquiry, the perpetrator was found to be a tiny metal strip about the size of a pencil. However, how could a little metal strip weighing just 110,000 kilograms have contributed to the aircraft's downfall, and what subsequent events led to Concorde's permanent discontinuation? Let's have another look at the Takeoff series of videos. This is the tale of Air France Flight 4590, which was scheduled to arrive at John F. Kennedy Airport in New York from Charles de Gaulle Airport in Paris. There were 3 pilots, 6 cabin staff members, and 100 passengers in all. The iconic aircraft was the BAC Concorde, which was once thought to be the most audacious aircraft in aviation history. It's even regarded as an engineering masterpiece by some. The fact that it traveled twice as fast as a typical passenger plane was its most notable characteristic. This allowed the trip from America to Europe to be completed in 7 hours as opposed to the customary 35. The Concorde, which broke speed records with its maximum speed of 2,180 km per hour, was well known for its superb delta wing design. Engineers used this wing shape, which is typical of combat planes, to allow the Concorde to reach supersonic speeds. But the issue with this delta wing was that, in addition to needing a very high speed for takeoff, it also needed a sharp angle of attack. The aircraft's nose raised during takeoff, making it challenging for the pilot to see the runway. A typical passenger plane's angle of attack during takeoff is significantly smaller in contrast. The Concorde took off at a top speed of 200 knots, or 230 km per hour, in spite of its difficulties. Over its 30 years of operation, there were several instances of tire rupture on the Concorde due to its high speed, which caused the tires to suffer pressure above their limit. However, because the tires burst quickly, no serious damage was done. Furthermore, fragments of tire would strike the wing as fast as a bullet, increasing the possibility of wing punctures. In the first models, engineers strengthened the tires and made early changes to the landing gear to reduce the danger. Tire explosions become a thing of the past with these modifications. This technical data is adequate to comprehend the July 25, 2000 incident involving Air France 4590. The pilots and a flight engineer were ready for takeoff on Air France Flight 4590 at 2:3. They had all finished the required post-boarding inspections, so they collectively had a great deal of experience. They asked the tower for permission to taxi to runway 26R at Paris Airport, which is one of the airport's 2 runways. The Concorde's takeoff requires the lengthy runway 26R, and the control tower gave them permission to use it. A problem developed, nevertheless, because the DC-10 aircraft operated by Continental Airlines was already prepared for departure on runway 26R. The Concorde and the supersonic transport plane Concorde K were planned to take off from the same runway. Flight 4590 was given permission by the control tower to move forward to runway 26R. Flight 4590 was in the process of taking off when it taxied from Romeo Taxiway to runway 26R. The Concorde's captain conducted flight checks at this time, which is a standard practice before to departure when the aircraft's fuel and weight are confirmed. In the meanwhile, the DC-10 of Continental Airlines began to take off. The DC-10 was about to take off when a little metal strip broke free from its right engine and dropped down the runway. The pilot of the Concorde continued with the takeoff without realizing this. The problem, though, was that Chord K required runway 26 for departure, which was also designated for the DC-10, which was already certified for takeoff. First to take off was expected to be the Concorde, then Chord K. The Concorde skipper checked the weight and fuel during the takeoff roll of Chord K, as is customary prior to departure. There was not enough time for a runway check because of the short interval between the two takeoffs. It was now the turn of Air France 4590. The four engines were running at full power when they engaged the thrust levers, signaling that they had been given the all-clear to take off by the control tower. It was noon at this moment, and they were on runway 26R, which was long enough for Chord K's takeoff. In under 24 seconds, the Concorde had accelerated to the point where it was positioned on runway 26R. On runway 26R, however, the Continental Airlines DC-10 was already in the process of taking off. There was not enough time for a runway inspection because the takeoff times were so close together. Meanwhile, the Concorde accelerated to the speed at which Chord K's 30-year tenure on the metal strip started. Now, 35 seconds into the takeoff roll, the left landing gear of the Concorde scrambled onto the metal strip that had come loose from the engine of the DC-10. The metal strip that the DC-10's engine had displaced caused increased pressure in the left main tire of the Concorde, which exploded instantly. The captain proceeded with the climb, seeing nothing out of the ordinary during takeoff. On the other hand, the flight recorder recorded the exact location of the ruptured left wheel, that is, the spot where the metal strip was eventually discovered by the investigative team. The video footage would subsequently establish that the Concorde's left main tire had indeed ruptured because of the metal strip from the DC-10, even though the investigative team said there was a 99% probability the tire would explode because of the metal strip. The Concorde's leftmost tire had ruptured, and a second later, the metal strip that the DC-10 had moved had caused excessive pressure to build up on the left wheel, which erupted in a minor explosion. The Concorde was now drifting to the left due to a fire in the left wing. Not realizing there was a fire aboard, the pilot stepped on the right pedal to straighten the plane. But as the Concorde swerved left on takeoff, air traffic control realized something was odd. The compression stall occurred because the smoke and flames from the two left engines were obstructing the intake of the jet engines. Each engine gave out. The emergency procedures were instantly begun by the flight engineer. The captain was notified by ATC at this time that there was a fire on the aircraft and that they should return right away to the airfield. With just the two right engines operating at this point, the Concorde was having difficulty staying aloft. Due to the failure of both engines, the aircraft was unable to ascend and found it difficult to stay at its present height. The left wing burst into flames and the flaps started to melt. The pilot tried to get the plane to turn right, but he had trouble keeping the speed up. Significantly reducing the speed was essential to the Concorde's survival. Ultimately, with only two working right engines, the Concorde was fighting for its life at 121, 244, and 31 seconds. The turn to the left was quite abrupt, and as it lost height, it struck a hotel structure. There were 109 individuals on board the aeroplane at the time of the disaster, and 4 persons on the ground died at the scene. The collision scene was sealed off, and the investigation got underway right away. As I previously said, the flight data recorder was used to search the area of the runway where the left turn happened. They discovered the engine's metal strip there. They found that the right engine of the Continental Airlines DC-10 was missing the metal plate. The investigative team discovered that this metal strip had been fixed twice per the engine manufacturer's SOP after reviewing Continental Airlines maintenance records. Drilling holes and fitting it was an improvised procedure that has been used 37 times in total to fix it. This was the cause of the engine breaking due to vibrations, which resulted in the runway accident. Following this occurrence, the excessive speed of the Concorde led to the tires bursting, a major problem that forced the aircraft to be grounded for all further Concorde flights. The search for a precise answer took several months for engineers. In the wake of the 9/11 attacks in 2001, airline travel became frowned upon by travelers throughout the globe, and Concorde ticket costs, which were already significantly more than those of regular aircraft, rose even further. It was impossible to operate a Concorde again under these circumstances. This signaling the end of Concorde's operational life and the beginning of its museum exhibit. We only know that humans have exceeded the speed of sound for 31 years in recorded history. Perhaps in the future, we will once more be able to travel at supersonic speeds. We sincerely hope you would watch and remark on this video with love. I much appreciate your warm remarks. We are really appreciative. In the upcoming amazing video,